I was never one to scream. 30 years ago, when I was in the army, I was taught that those who shout too much usually lose their reason. That's why, when my wife threw that phrase in my face, "Divide the assets and leave. I'm tired of carrying you on my back," I just breathed. She spoke loudly in the middle of the room as if she were in a courtroom. Apparently, she expected me to explode, that I would discuss, that I would make a scandal, but I didn't react. I was too tired for that. And also because I already knew something she didn't know yet. She was even more annoyed by my silence. He came at me with that mocking tone, pointing to everything we had in the house. She said that half of it was hers. The kitchen, the living room, the car, even the dog, according to her, would be decided by the judge. He crossed his arms and stared at me with that smile I had never seen. It was there that I realized that she had been planning that for a long time. Maybe with friends, maybe with someone who told her that women win everything in divorce. She was sure she was ready for war, but she didn't know the kind of war I had already faced. I didn't answer. I just went to the room, grabbed my coat and left. She shouted something else about running away like a coward, but I wasn't running away. I was going to gather the documents. I never wanted to prepare against her. I believed that marriage was a partnership, not a contract. But from the day I started building my company 8 years ago, my former veteran colleagues warned me, "Record everything in your name alone. He trusts, but he doesn't sign anything without thinking." I had registered the company as a sole proprietorship LLC, with my social security number and no partners. She thought that by signing a few checks with me and posting a picture on Instagram saying that we built everything together, she had a nice part. There wasn't. When I returned home, she'd already packed 2 of my suitcases at the door. She was determined to expel me that very night. He looked at me as if I were an unwanted guest. I didn't make a scene. I just dragged the bags to the side and sat on the couch. She stood, arms crossed, waiting for me to beg. I didn't beg. I just said, "All right, let's solve this calmly." She laughed. It was a laugh of anticipated victory. A classic mistake of those who think they have already won before the battle begins. The next morning, I received a message from her with the contact of the lawyer she had hired. He wrote, "He will call you later today. I've done my part. Don't beat around the bush." I just replied, "Perfect," and I sent my lawyer's contact as well. I hadn't called him yet, but I already knew that this was the time to activate him. He was a divorce expert and former military man as well. When he answered, I said just that. "It's now." He replied, "Did you register everything in your name as I said?" I confirmed. He said, "Then just let her talk. It does not argue." At the end of the day, the 3 of us were in a meeting room. Me, her, and her lawyer. My lawyer came in later. She opened the meeting by speaking as if she were a spokesperson for a multinational company. He said he wanted 50% of everything and more pension. He cited values, listed goods, even mentioned clothes he bought and wanted reimbursement. Her lawyer seemed confident. My lawyer only calmly asked, "Do you have documents proving shareholding?" She said that everyone saw that she helped, that everyone knew it was both of them. He repeated, "Contract, signature, proxy, CPF of it in any paper of the company?" She began to get angry. He said that was machismo. He responded in the most neutral voice in the world, "It's not machismo. It's law." It was the first time I saw her lose her posture. Her face hardened. Her breathing accelerated. She looked at me expecting me to defend her. I kept looking at the table, as I was taught in the army when the bomb still didn't explode. "You don't move before your time." She started banging on the table with the palm of her hand, saying that it was ridiculous. He turned to her lawyer as if he were some kind of magician who could turn motion into a legal document. He tried to calm the situation by saying that we could still build an amicable agreement. She didn't want a deal. She wanted victory, and he wanted me to leave there defeated, humiliated, perhaps apologizing. But I wasn't there to ask for anything. I was just waiting for the right moment. She changed her strategy. He stopped talking about goods and started attacking me as a man. She said I was ungrateful, that she endured my difficult phase when I left the army and didn't know what to do with my life, that she was the one who encouraged me to open the company, that without her, I would never have gotten where I am. I wasn't. Much of what she said was true. She was with me through the difficult early years, but being together is not being an owner. Supporting is not signing a document. Love is not a contract of society, but that's okay. I let her talk. My lawyer poked me with his eyes as if to say, "Not yet." So I waited. She didn't notice. He thought that the more he talked, the stronger he became. But she was wearing herself out. Suddenly, she uttered the phrase that changed everything. If it weren't for me, he wouldn't have anything. So I want it all. Not just half. Everything. Her lawyer cleared his throat, trying to disguise his embarrassment. My lawyer folded his hands and said calmly, "So we need to make it clear what exactly is this everything that you believe you are entitled to. Let's go by parts." He opened the briefcase and took out the documents. He put on the table the company's opening certificate, the records with the Federal Revenue Service, the articles of association, the proof of payment of taxes, and even the deed of the shed where the headquarters now operate. All with my name. Just my name. He turned the papers toward her and asked, "Any signatures of yours on any of these documents?" She stared, mute. He insisted, "Any line? Any terms of partnership, quotas, participation?" She did not answer. I just looked at those papers as if they were written in another language. It seemed that she was understanding for the first time the difference between saying, "I helped," and saying, "I signed." Between posting on Instagram, "Our company," and saying in court, "I'm a partner." Her silence filled the room like smoke. Her lawyer cleared his throat and tried to redirect. "We can still discuss emotional compensation." But my lawyer cut me off. "We're not here to discuss emotions. We are here to discuss heritage." That's when she exploded for good. He got up from his chair, pushed the papers, and shouted that it was a betrayal. She said that I deceived her all this time, that I registered the company only in my name because I was already planning to get rid of it. I almost answered. I almost said that I didn't plan any of that, that when I registered I was only following legal advice, that I never imagined that one day she would be my opponent. But I kept quiet. She became desperate. He began to say that he had proof that he helped, that there were photos of her at the company, that there were audios of us talking about money. Her lawyer tried to warn that photos and audios of informal conversations did not serve as corporate proof. She didn't want to listen. He spoke louder and louder. He called my lawyer a manipulator. He said that it was institutional machismo. I remained silent, because that was not a fight of force. It was a combat of control. She was losing control, and when a person loses control in public, he usually loses his reason as well. Her lawyer asked for a break. She refused. He said he didn't need any break, that she was going to prove it right there. He took out his cell phone and started looking for audios to put on speakerphone on the table, as if that would change anything. Her hand trembled, and the more I trembled, the more I saw that she wasn't fighting me. She was fighting reality. She put an audio where I said, "Our company will grow." He repeated the "our company" part several times. He looked at the lawyers hoping that would be enough. My lawyer just said, "That's called force of speech. It's not a document." She blushed. I was playing with my cell phone in anger, trying to find another audio. Her lawyer asked her to stop. She said she wasn't going to stop, that if that divorce was like that, then it would expose everything, that she was going to tell her friends, her family, that I had hidden everything from her. My lawyer replied, "You can count on it. But first, remember that defamation is also a crime." It was at that moment that she sat down again. But it wasn't like the first time. She didn't sit as if she was still in charge. She sat as if she realized she was cornered. Her lawyer tried to rearrange the conversation, as if trying to save a boat that is already sinking. He said that it was still possible to seek a middle ground, that we could build a fair for both agreement. But she no longer wanted justice. He wanted revenge. And when someone enters an emotional war seeking revenge while the other has a cool head, the result is predictable. She took a deep breath and spoke slowly, trying to regain control. "Okay, I already understood that legally I don't have a name on the papers, but morally everyone knows that I built this with him." She turned to me, waiting for me to confirm. I didn't say anything. She insisted, "Speak, please. Say I'm lying. Tell you that you wouldn't be where you are if I hadn't done everything I did for you." I stared at her for a second. I could have said yes, that she was with me, that she supported me, but I knew that any word of mine would be used against me. She didn't want truth. He wanted ammunition. So I just replied, "This is not a hearing about thanks. It's about heritage." She looked at me as if I had spat in her face. Her eyes burned with rage. But behind the anger I saw something else. Fear. Fear of leaving there as the villain. Fear of being seen as someone who tried to take what was not hers. Fear of losing control of the narrative she had already told others. She tried to regain superiority with sarcasm. "So that's how you're going to pay me? After all I've done for you?" I didn't answer. She turned to her lawyer and said, "Then let's go to court." "I don't accept that. I want an audience. Judge. Whatever." My lawyer just put the documents back in the folder and said, "All right. Just remembering that in a hearing, all these documents will be public. And any accusation of yours, if not proven with material evidence, will be recorded as an attempt at illicit enrichment." She widened her eyes. "Illicit enrichment?" She repeated, offended. "That's the legal name for what you're trying to do." My lawyer replied calmly, as if explaining the weather forecast. Her lawyer sighed, clearly embarrassed. He put his hand on her shoulder and said, "I think it's better to talk alone for 5 minutes." She ignored it. She continued to stare at everyone as if she were surrounded by enemies. But for the first time, I saw that she didn't know what else to say. Her voice cracked. His breathing was uneven. His fingers trembled. It was the kind of tremor I had already seen in rookie soldiers on the first real mission. That moment when the body realizes that pride does not protect against reality. Her lawyer got up and left the room to make room. She sat looking at the table. He didn't cry. It didn't break anything. She just stood still, as if she was trying to gather the strength to say something that wouldn't hurt even more. After a few seconds, she spoke without raising her head. "So that's it? Are you really going to leave me with nothing?" My lawyer once again answered before me. "Nobody said she's going to leave with nothing. She just won't leave with what isn't hers." She raised her head slowly. He stared at me again. This time, not angry, with a wound. "So you tell me, what do you think is fair?" I could have said anything. He could have offered half of the house, half of the savings, the car. It could have made her feel welcomed. But I knew that any display of affection there would be interpreted as weakness. She was still armed. He had only exchanged the scream for the victim. Then I replied in the same tone, "I think it's fair that you leave with what's yours, and I with what is mine." She was silent. For a few seconds I thought she was going to get up and leave, but she took another deep breath and said something I didn't expect. "Then tell me, what do you think is mine?" My lawyer looked at me as if to say, "Don't open a loophole," but I said it anyway. "We can share the house. We can sell and share. The car, you choose which one you want. We see the date of when you left your job and calculate proportionally what was aerial joint investment." She looked surprised. Maybe because he thought I was going to take her out of everything. Maybe because for the first time she saw that the problem wasn't that she left with anything. It was that she wanted everything. She leaned back in her chair, and for the first time since it all began, she didn't speak anymore. I knew the meeting wasn't over. When her lawyer returned to the room, I could tell by the look that he had tried to stop the tide, but the water was already up to his neck. She stared at me in silence for a few seconds and then made the last move. She said she had an email in which I recognized that everything was theirs. He opened the notebook in a hurry, typed, searched, clicked. I continued to sit, hands on the table, spine erect, breathing controlled, as in training. When she turned the screen to us, her lawyer cleared his throat again. The email was not mine. It came from an employee-sold address with the company's automatic signature. The text spoke of our team, our mission, our home, marketing, not society. My lawyer just pointed to the footer and asked, "Who is the author?" It wasn't my name. Her face stiffened. He tried to minimize it, saying it was the same thing. He replied that it was not. She then called her brother's cell phone by video and spoke loudly to the camera, asking him to confirm that I said that the company belonged to both of them. The brother stuttered on the other side. He said he thought I said that. My lawyer asked me to end the call, remembering that it had no probative value and that exposing third parties without authorization could become another problem. Her lawyer agreed. She slammed the screen, annoyed. He said that I was using cold words to annul years of real life. I kept the same tone. It wasn't about erasing memories, it was about distinguishing affection from record, gratitude from ownership, help from subscription. She realized she was losing ground and appealed to direct prosecution. She said that I'd manipulated her not to sign anything, that I kept her out of purpose, that I had planned this from day one. I almost said that at the time I didn't even know if the company was going to work out, that I registered as a sole proprietorship, because it was the standard guideline to start lean in New York, with no shared risks, and because I was terrified of mixing marriage with partnership. I almost said that at the time I just wanted to work, pay the bills and sleep better, but I didn't. My silence turned the key without breaking down the door. She raised her voice. He called the whole environment unfair. He said that if necessary, he would take the story to the networks. He said that everyone would know who I really was. Her lawyer tried to intervene. He suggested a break, a coffee, anything that would take the heat out of the room. She refused again. I was in no hurry. I had time. That was the first silent phrase I learned when I left the army. Don't let the enemy pull you into his field. Keep yours. They wanted to hurry. I had the documents. I had the record. I had the patience. Her lawyer took a deep breath and proposed a realistic agreement. Division of the house, choice of one of the cars, a proportional share of the savings until a time frame. My lawyer nodded that it was a fair basis. I added that I would bear the costs of moving and 3 months of intermediate rent so that she could reorganize herself without humiliation. She interpreted it as weakness. He knocked on the table again and said that he did not accept alms. He wanted half of the company. He wanted what was due to him. He looked at the lawyer as if he were the executor of the desire. He, tired, explained that it did not exist on paper and would not exist by decree. She got up, went to the window, and stood for a few seconds. The city down there was still alive, honking horns in New York rhythm, people hurrying, delivery men on bicycles scudding the avenue. When she returned to the table, her hands no longer trembled. Other eyes had the redness of someone who had gone through her anger and ran into a wall. He sat down slowly. He said that he accepted to talk inside that base, but that he would not sign anything that day. My lawyer replied that it was fine, that we would prepare the draft with the terms and send it within 48 hours. She nodded, breathed, and closed her laptop calmly this time. On the way out, already in the elevator hall, she met 2 acquaintances in the office hallway. He pulled out what was left of breath, and in front of the 2 said loudly that I was a coward who hid everything. Her lawyer, pale, intervened before the elevator arrived. He said in a clear voice that it was false and dangerous to be repeated. He explained that no society existed, that any other insinuation could be framed as defamation, and that the entire process would make it public. The 2 friends were disconcerted. She stammered that, "That's not what I meant." The elevator arrived. We went down in silence. Outside, she turned to me and promised that no one would stand by me. He promised that everyone would know. I just replied that I wasn't going to dispute narrative on the street, that anything should go through the lawyers. She laughed dismissively, turned her back and disappeared around the corner. Her lawyer stayed behind and apologized. I said I understood. He muttered that he had tried his best, that sometimes people confuse love with contract and pain with entitlement. I didn't want to prolong it. He saluted with my gaze. He nodded silently as if he had also learned the difference between noise and truth. 2 days later, the draft was ready. Send. The phone was quiet for a whole day. I worked in the warehouse, checked inventory, talked to customers, prepared a delivery to Queens. In the evening, I received a notification on my cell phone, a long text from her in a group of friends, insinuating that I expelled her empty-handed. I took a deep breath. I didn't answer. I remembered the rule. Don't go into the mud. You take it to the light. I forwarded the message to my lawyer. He asked for 10 minutes. In 15, a response appeared in the same group, not mine, but from her own lawyer. He wrote, formally and directly, that the allegations did not match reality, that a proposed settlement was already with her, including division of the house, choice of vehicle, proportional share of savings, and relocation assistance. She added that any public distortion could compromise her own client, and that she recommended everyone to wait for the legal process. The group fell silent. I didn't write anything. I didn't have to. Sometimes the best answer is written in a notary's office. The next day, she sent me only a "I received." No emoticon, no period. The document was adjusted with 2 minor remarks, and, a week later, the signature came. There was no hug, no photo, no post. There was silence. And in this silence fits everything I learned. I didn't need to win by shouting. I needed to end up standing with the truth in the right place. I closed the office door that afternoon and stood for a minute, staring at the smooth floor of the shed. The compressor turned on with that noise that I know with my eyes closed. It was the city saying that the world goes on. On the first Saturday alone in the new apartment, I woke up before the sun. I made coffee in silence and sat by the window overlooking the river. I remembered the night she said, "Divide the assets and leave," and the desire I had to respond to the screams. I'm glad I didn't answer. I was silent, but inside me something screamed. At that moment I stopped being a victim. I became an observer. I understood that the courage I needed in the army was the same as what I needed now. To keep a cool head, to separate the essential from the noise, to protect what I built without stepping on anyone. I called 2 veterans and thanked them for their old advice. They laughed, said I should show up at the bar next Friday. I promised that it would. Before hanging up, I heard one of them say, "Proud of you, brother." I closed my eyes. Few words, all the sense. The city woke up. Me too. I grabbed my keys, went down to the street, and walked to the company. When I opened the gate of the shed, the smell of oil and metal greeted me as always, honest and without theater. I ran my hand over the countertop, got close to the first equipment and turned it on. I had work to do. There were people to attend. He had a life to follow. And more than anything, he had peace. They had greed. I had the documents. They wanted to hurry. I had time. In the end, the account closes. If I were you, I would accept the noise of those who accuse you. Or would you let the truth speak for you?